Mary, thank you so much for being here at the 2024 Reservation Economics Summit. I know that you have a lot of activity going on, so you have to rush back to Washington, D.C., but I did want to really thank you for being here.
Thank you. It's just unfortunate that our voting days coincided with Res this year on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. So unfortunately for me, I'm not able to be here for the fun part.
Well, just being here today is so important, and we want you to vote. So thank you so much.
Yes.
We know you've been in Congress for about a year and a half now, which is amazing. Tell us some about that experience, and has it met your expectations?
Oh, it's been a lot more than I ever could have expected. I don't think my imagination is really big enough to have foreseen some of the unforeseeable things that have happened in the last Congress. Our Alaska delegation, we've really been able to get some wins for Alaska despite the gridlock, so we're really proud of that.
And any wins for Alaska often is a win for rural America or Indian country, so I really commend you with that.
Thank you. And we all do really feel responsibility and an allegiance with lower 48 tribes and Hawaiian people. Hawaiians don't have the same kind of federal recognition that Indian country is blessed with, and we very much think of them as we're looking at public policy.
Yeah, absolutely. What are some of the legislation pieces that maybe you've worked on or something you're proud of, or maybe even what's coming down the pipeline?
Some of the work that I've been working on, along with my colleagues that I'm really proud of, I'm co-sponsors on many pieces of legislation, I think half of which are with Republicans. I'm blessed, I belong to the Western Caucus, which is 106 Republicans and me, all working on issues of importance to Western states, water, air, tribal issues, things that we all collectively want to move forward on. One of the bills that I'm excited to be a co-sponsor on is the tribal co-management of buffalo and reintroducing buffalo across many nations. And I think that will provide an opportunity for economic development and healing in a lot of ways. There were 5 communities that did not receive the recognition under NCAIED to get village corporations and their land under NCAIED. So we're working to write that. That's a Don Young legacy bill. We were able to push through the Willow Project. It's the largest oil development project that Alaska has seen in decades. And we're really hopeful that this will be a shot in the arm for the Alaska economy, both for village corporations, native corporations, small businesses across Alaska, and just Alaska in general. And we are planning on doing a bill looking at factory trawling in Alaska and the impacts that has on people who have had a relationship with salmon for 12,000 years. I mean, I could go on for a lot longer, but those are some of the highlights.
Well, it's amazing about just those highlights. And one thing that really impressed me about you and your campaign was you really put these issues front and center for Alaska Natives and even others, especially around some of the challenges a lot of our Native Alaskans are facing around the fishing industry, and it seems like people really respond to it. Did it surprise you that focusing on these issues generates such a positive impact?
It was a pleasant surprise to see how many Alaskans see their self-identity as, through salmon and seafood in general, and have really rallied around the cause of creating abundance again. One of the things that I really focused on was explaining that if you're a Native person, you're holistic. So even though I'm a Native candidate and a female and from the bush, I want to represent all Alaskans because we're very holistic. It's really hard to be a Native leader without acknowledging that the Native community is part of a larger community. Everyone needs to be successful. So we don't really see a distinction between our success and everyone else's. I mean, we know that a rising tide lifts all boats.
I like that holistic approach because it is so important in our communities, and it's impactful to have that holistic approach. So you are the only third Native woman elected to Congress and the first Alaska Native. How does this distinction guide the work you do in Congress? Do you have to spend a lot of time explaining Native issues to some of your coworkers?
Yes, there's always a need to explain Indian country and natives and Alaska Natives to folks, even within our own state. We have a really high transient population in Alaska. We have a really transient population in Congress. I think 60% of my caucus alone has been there 6 years or less. So that means that although many of the people who are attending your conference, many Indian leaders from across the nation, have been at this for decades and generations. We just really have to keep going. We can never let up on that effort to explain to people who we are and how we're related to them, and the relationship that we have with everyone else in this country, and our desire to work together.
Something that's very important to anyone in elected office is balance. And that's certainly something you specifically have to manage. You're a Democrat in a state that hasn't voted for a Democrat for president since 1964. You care deeply about the environment and climate change, but also understand the importance of resource development to Alaska's economy. How do you manage to strike that balance? What's your North Star when it comes to your views on policy and work as an elected official?
I think in some ways much more simple for me to look at things because I really don't have a partisan lens. I don't really see myself as coming from one party or another, and I think a lot of people across Indian country can relate to that. We see ourselves as what town we're from, or what clan we're from, or our tribal affiliation, or our high school mascot before we see ourselves as from one party or another. And I just look at things from a regular, everyday Alaskan perspective. How would a normal Alaskan benefit from this or be adversely affected by this? And so that's kind of the lens that I look at things from. So that really simplifies it.
We have thousands of attendees at RES, and you and I had talked previously, not only a big population from Alaska, but we have almost every state. We also have representation from even outside of the United States this year. So a lot of business owners, a lot of leaders, a lot of economic development specialists. Do you have any advice for those attendees as they navigate RES this year and take that knowledge home?
One of the things that I focus on a lot is energy, because energy really is the engine for our economy and our homes and our lives. You cannot have a real economy if you don't have cheap, affordable, easy to access energy. And I think that has really impeded the development across Indian country and across remote and rural parts of America. And I'm very interested in seeing that resolved. And I think with these once in a generation huge funding packages that were passed recently, I think there are a lot of opportunities within those to capture. I think that the Department of Energy has been really good to work with. So I'm very hopeful that across America, we can get cheap, affordable energy to places, as well as internet, because that is the new way of doing commerce, and it's hard to do any kind of commerce. Even if you're running a mom and pop store with just cash, it's hard to do that without access to internet. So really looking forward to working with folks on that.
So this year's theme at RES 2024 is Strength and Unity. What does that statement mean to you?
I think it's really good that we are focusing on unity. I think that is the ultimate path forward. And I think Native people have always been good at consensus and compromise. And yeah, we're competitive, but we also like to collaborate. And having important meetings like this where we can touch base with people is so important. I think it's really important to also acknowledge voting, and that voting is self-care. And the more we can exercise our right to vote and the more we can turn out to vote, the more unity and power we will have ultimately.
Voting is such an ultimate tool for power. Everybody has a voice, so it is so important, and especially in our communities for sure.
Mm-hmm. And Native people wrote the book on democracy, so it's really up to us to be part of preserving democracy in America.
So Mary, each year the National Center awards a Congressional of the Year Achievement Award. And this year you have been voted to win the Congressional Achievement Award from the National Center for American Indian Enterprise Development. I really appreciate your leadership and mentorship, and we're just so excited about not only the work you've done, but the work you will do in the future. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Chris. This is wonderful. Thank you.